Board, I would like a motion to approve the purchases over 7,500 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, board, or actually Mr. Supple?
Thank you, Mrs. Lang. We have two purchases tonight. The first is for the fourth amendment to the contract with SM Wilson. And this amendment covers the structural steel that's necessary for the construction of the new high school. SM Wilson did all of the work to bid out this project. They were able to receive 2 bids for the structural steel. They got a number of bids, a larger number of bids for the fabrication. This package also includes the underground plumbing and electrical work. And so taken all together, this project is valued at $18,341,777. As I noted in the memo to the board, the price for the steel, the majority of the work, the structural elements of the steel, that has been locked in. But some of the miscellaneous pieces, what's called the plate steel, which is like the door lintels and some other small pieces like that, we've added an allowance to the bid because we can't actually manufacture those pieces yet, and there could be some cost escalation. That's included in the number that the board is being asked to approve tonight. If we don't need to have use of any of that contingency, the ending price that we pay to Wilson would be reduced by whatever we don't use. So we're asking for approval of the full amount, which includes the allowance for some cost escalation on the plate steel, but that's already been factored into the amount presented to the board for approval. The second item tonight is the installation of a new boiler at the current Francis Howell North. That system has been running on borrowed time for a number of years, and we had hoped to make it all the way through until the new building was completed, but that was not the case. And so all of the boilers there have failed and are no longer repairable. We are utilizing 2 boilers that we salvaged from Becky David when we redid their HVAC over this past summer, which is helping to defray the cost of providing the necessary heating and cooling to Francis Howell. At its August meeting, the board approved the purchase of this boiler. This purchase is for the installation of the boiler. The way that the system works at Francis Howell North is that heating and cooling is used throughout the year in order to maintain the appropriate humidity levels. We have had issues in the building before with higher levels of humidity, and so this work is critical to get started as soon as possible so that we don't risk upsetting the environment there by letting it get too humid within the building. So that's why we brought this forward tonight, so that we could begin the work as quickly as possible to get that boiler installed and maintain the appropriate humidity levels within the building.
Okay, any questions, board?
I do.
Chad? Mr.
Okay,
Lang?
Kevin, so I see on the scope for this, the steel, the structural steel, underground, plumbing, electrical, when do we, the district, get to see the contractors that SM Wilson chose to do this?
Thanks, Mr. Lang. We'll provide that list. I don't have it in front of me tonight, but I know that you've asked that before, and we can share that. We'll share that information with the board. We'll have something ready for you for September 16th. Be able to share with you the subs that involved.
And also, like, if possible, so the next time we, obviously there's going to be a bunch more amendments to these. If we can have that information maybe attached to this, because I went through this looking at it and I see, you know, they say they got bids and stuff like that. And I'm just curious, it's kind of, we get asked all the time, you know, who's going to be doing this work, stuff like that.
And I'll check with Wilson and make sure that we're okay with doing that, to presenting the names of the subs prior to the board approving that. And if that's the case, we'll be happy to include the list of the subs. We are not hiring the subs. SM Wilson is. But we can provide the names of the ones who have been selected.
Well, when I asked before, prior to this construction management at risk, I wanted to make sure we had some kind, as a district, had some kind of control over who, if we chose SM Wilson, we still have control over who they subcontract. Meaning having the possibility of opting out of somebody or what have you. When I emailed you, months and months ago.
Yeah, we have provided them very clear instructions on parameters that we want all of our subcontractors to meet. And so we'll make sure that they adhere to our standards. But again, the process is we are not gonna, it would be very unusual for us to exercise an exclusion of a subcontractor that SM Wilson picks, because we hired them as our construction manager and they're hiring all the subs. But they have to meet the standards that we've selected.
Okay.
And so we review that before John Klein and Jeremy Bettler have an opportunity to understand who's going to be working on the project. They know what our standards are. They match the requirements that we've had in place on prior building projects. Some of the discussion that we've had previously, Mr. Lang. So I will tell you that they're going to meet all of those standards that we've outlined before. So we have some insight into that, but I don't want to make I wouldn't want to mislead the board into thinking that as a recommendation came forward, we could accept this amendment, but with the provision that we're going to take sub A instead of sub B. That wouldn't be the way that it would work, but we would certainly make sure that the SM Wilson is meeting all of our standards in the selection of subs.
Right, and I get that. Like, even if they just send us who they're going to use, not necessarily even who they solicited, just so we know. Because I think when I asked that was my meeting back then.
Yeah.
And without looking at my email directly,
Sure.
I don't exactly.
Sure.
But okay, one more thing. I'm going to jump to the next thing with the boilers. So I'm just curious here. It seems like a pretty big price tag for the boilers. I get it that they're expensive, whatever. But and Camerlin, or the company that's being used to do this, is our preferred vendor, which is no problem. At what threshold do we have that we just won't go with our preferred vendor or contractor and go out for a request for a proposal on that?
We haven't set a specific threshold. Usually the installations are about in this price range. So this is not a surprising number for us. The advantage is to allow us to have some ability to move projects forward a little bit more quickly. Just taking this one in particular, a bid process just for the installation would have added several weeks to the process by the time we drew up specifications and advertised it and got the bids in and reviewed them and then made a recommendation. So we were able to just give direction to Camerlin as to what we wanted to occur without having the formal bid process. And it's the ability to speed things along. So, we'll be happy to consider different parameters if the board would like, but in this particular instance, it made sense for us to move forward as quickly as possible with our preferred vendor.
I understand. Okay, and one final thing. So I see that's two repurposed boilers and one new one. So before we rip down the school in a couple of years or whatever, possibly repurposing the new one or selling it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
and that's already factored into our plans as we're thinking about other projects because we've tried to standardize the types of units that we use throughout the district. And so purchasing this will give us a relatively new boiler that will be available for use somewhere else in the district. And it already meets the standards and works with the systems that we have in place.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. How does this align with the budget for the project? The $18 million steel proposal, is that what we were expecting for this particular phase? Is it more? I know a lot of things have gotten more expensive. How is that going?
The steel package in particular is higher than what we had anticipated at the time that the project was first conceived, but we would not have anticipated the type of price escalation. So we don't have a specific line item that we can point to, but speaking in general, steel prices are in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% higher than what they've been previously. So it's reasonable to assume that we're paying 15 to 20% more than we would have if the market were completely different. Whether it's good news or bad news, we're in the same boat as everybody else who's purchasing steel right now. So we aren't paying a premium above what the total market is paying, but the market itself is probably 15 to 20% higher than it would have been a year and a half, 2 years ago.
I guess my follow-up question is, do we have any type of estimate as far as the building of the new high school? How much over budget are we going to be? I mean, I know we don't know yet.
We don't have a firm number yet. We're working towards that guaranteed maximum price. I know that when I think about the design process, we went through a comprehensive facilities master plan with our architects that led to the determination of what projects were going to be included in Proposition S. We placed some very broad-based estimates on certain projects in anticipation so that we could scope out the size of the bond issue that we were looking for. And a lot of things have changed. So there is no question that the cost for the new high school is going to be more than what we had originally anticipated when we created Proposition S. But we're still refining exactly how much more that's going to be. And so we probably have much more that has yet to be bid out than what has currently been bid. And so to make an estimate right now would be short-sighted on my part, because we could see escalations on the high side, or we could see prices come down. I was talking about the escalation in steel prices, but lumber prices have recently dropped significantly. So if I made an estimate today about lumber prices, or it would be different than what I might have estimated 4 months ago. So I don't want to speculate with a number for the entire building at this point, because we have so much left to bid yet.
Thank you.
Ms. Stiglich?
Mr. Supple, I have a question. I've heard, or I'm sure we've all heard, that steel is, like you had mentioned, it was 20% higher and everything. By our purchasing this tonight, have they given us a guarantee when that might be coming in? Are we guaranteed that because we're purchasing it right now, that it's going to be here quicker than if we waited another couple of weeks to do this? I mean, have they given us any kind of a guarantee of when the steel would be available?
We have locked in the purchase of the steel. So yes, by moving forward tonight, even the 2 weeks between tonight and the regularly scheduled board meeting is critical to getting into the queue for along with all of the other people who are looking for structural steel. This high school is a huge project and it requires a lot of steel. So yes, moving forward tonight was critical. I won't tell you that we have a absolute guarantee of a delivery date, but Wilson does have very good estimates of when the steel is going to be delivered, and they're factoring that into their construction timeline for the building. And we were on a very tight time framework to begin with. Once we approved Proposition S and then moved forward with the projects. And so we're pushing very hard to make sure that we keep as close to that projected end date for this construction as possible. But there's some market forces that are working against us. Steel is certainly one of those. But getting into the queue by approving this tonight is going to help us tremendously.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right. Board, I would like a motion to enter closed session to discuss personnel 610.0213 RSMO.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
By roll call?
Mr. Hain,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Ms. Lang,
Aye.
Ms. Stiglich,
Aye.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lang.
Aye.
Apologize.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.